What would your dream hobby be if time and money were not an issue? Having a garage and learning to fix old cars. Traveling and experiencing cultures around the world. I love carpentry. I watch dozens of YouTube videos on woodwork. I freaking love it and the creativity is endless. I wish I had a huge garage and a set of tools to work with. Collecting and playing as many instruments as I can. I really love music. Blacksmithing. I love knives and blades. But I can't really afford it since I'm a student. Growing plants. Any plants. Medicinal. Food, or just flowers to look good. Giant greenhouses on acres of land dedicated to growing many plants. All day every day. The main limiting factor of DAND is the time to get people together to play. So I'd finally get the opportunity to run the 8 or 9 campaigns I have stored away. I might even have the opportunity to run them multiple times for different groups so I could really fine-tune them. The true BBG is adult scheduling. Honestly, I would just travel the world and meet new people from different cultures along the way. It would be a relaxing and fun way to live out life if I'm being honest. Making things. My hobbies already consist of 3D printing, modeling and designing etc. If money was no objects, I would have a proper CNC machine. I currently only have a small CNC router, laser cutter, paint booth and tools out the ass. One day I'll have all these things, but time is limited and I can only make so much, so it's slow. But one day I'll have my dream shop and maybe be successful enough at building those things where I can quit my full-time job and focus on that. I'd personally love to get into model trains again. An ever-expanding animal sanctuary. Hiking. I love walking. I'd love to have days to go on treks into proper forests and mountains. Since I was a teenager, I always said that if I ever win the lottery I would buy a plane and do humanitarian missions with it. Bring some vaccines in isolated places around the world. Do some medical evacuation with it, etc. I'm now a pilot on a medevac plane, so I guess I'm not too far from this. I wake up every day and enjoy the job I dreamed LF since I was 6yo. Flying is a very expensive hobby. I'm glad I'm getting paid for it, but it's also my favorite hobby. Collecting and playing board games. Learning languages and getting paid for it. Photography. I'm not good at it, but I think if I had the money I'd be able to invest in better lens and work on my editing skills. I'd take in dogs that often get passed over at shelters and restore antique clothing, furniture and other things. End goal. I live in a big old restored house with an army of dogs and the local children believe I am a witch. Edit. Thanks for the gold. Making diamond-studded bad dragons for charity. Astronomy. I would go to university and article as many courses as possible. I'm not sure if article is the correct term. I would take courses but not write any exams, as I would not be interested in receiving a degree. I would definitely do lab work, though. That's where the real magic happens. Edit. It's called auditing courses. Thanks for this. Painting on large canvases with oil paints. Both the canvas and paint are so expensive and it's incredibly time consuming to do anything with oil paints. If I could afford it, I'd do many more paintings. Edit. Holy smokes guys. Thanks so much for all the advice on how to get back into this. Warhammer. I have a Sisters of Battle army and I really want to get to 2k points, but with the metal figures since that's most of what I have already. I just want to make it awful B-list style slasher flicks. Growing up, my friends and I would always make these terrible horror movies, saw kinda the same formula each time. But as we continued making them, we'd experiment with special effects, makeup and props to add more realism and tackiness to our films. The last film we ever completed was Werewolf Apocalypse 3D, which actually kind of developed a small cult following. We shot the sequel but never finished the last couple of scenes. The film is 98% finished. We're debating releasing it as is, where we have a man severed in half. Blood squirts all over the place, severed limbs, etc. Anyway, that's what I would do someday. Edit. For those of you watching the film, It's recommended the film is best viewed with your best buds and a few beers in hand for the maximum experience. I would buy Cessna or something and fly it all day long. Wildlife bird photography. Travel the world looking at some dope-ass animals in their natural habitats. Specifically chimpanzees, dolphins, whales and wolves. After that I'd set up a non-profit conservation center. A bunch of hookers and sugar. Probably shooting. I would love to get into competition shooting, but ammo is expensive and I don't have the time needed to really hone the necessary skills. On top of that, the ranges around me kinda suck. I'd convert an older multi-story building into a bookstore and hang out there all day talking about books with people and reading. Treasure hunter adventurer. I really can't think of anything that would be better. Starting services businesses that aren't profitable. For example, I'd start a business that would clean trash off streets cities that taxes should be paying for but aren't. Same with road issues. Another would be offering a type of insurance that covers basic doctor, eye, dental checkups, routine work. Something like a mall but only for local businesses, pop-ups instead of brands one sees in every mall now. Like how we have packing districts of small eateries, but I want a huge one the size of a mall. Other countries have this but America doesn't. Competitor products for products who have since gone to it. Like YouTube Monetization. A school that's less focused on passing tests and teaching real world stuff that most people have to learn on their own. Like teaching good habits for studying. Teaching good habits for physical, emotional, and mental hygiene. Teaching kids how to have passion, discipline, and drive. How to fix things. How to take care of it if they're on their own. Basically some basic skills to help someone reach some life success in this day and age. My family came to America on nothing and now own a business with 300+ employees. I think the American dream is achievable but most natives here are not taught how to achieve it. Blacksmith. I would love to have a home forge and make things. Not just weapons, but also industrial art and pieces for other artists to improve upon. Video games. It sounds lame compared to other things in this thread, but I would love to find more time for them. I have such a huge backlog of games I've bought but never played, along with a lot of games I want to buy and play. So if I didn't need to worry about time and money, I'd definitely game. I would just run for days like Forrest Gump did. I'd love to pursue music more than I have so far. It takes time, which is directly linked to money. Sadly, there were times when I spent 8 hours a day in some rehearsal space. By now, work has taken over and most of my private life is actually more important than messing about on a guitar. So I get around to play once a month at best. If I could get a job that paid well enough to buy that time, I would go back and make music as often as I could. I'd love to make a television show with puppets, similar to Sesame Street, but for children having to cope with trauma, loss, hard transitions, there aren't a lot of mental health services that can get to children and it would be lovely to be able to bring something helpful to the ones who can't help themselves. Building computers or making Raspberry Pi gadgets. I'd get a large property and build a series of epic huge aquariums replicating all sorts of different freshwater and marine environments around the world. Then I'd travel the globe fishing everywhere and keeping the fish to stock my aquariums. You know, within reason, I'm talking fish that can survive happily in captivity, not a marlin or wally shark or anything. Basically to personally collect all of the world's fish, or most of them, and keep them as pets. Sigh. Being an artist and having a decent sized vegetable garden. Good art supplies are expensive as anything and it requires time to learn. For a vegetable garden I either need a home with decent space or access to a large allotment, and the time to maintain it. Probably get good at snow skiing and be able to fly all over the world to ski in awesome places. Maybe with those convenient helicopter rides to the top to ski amazing untouched powder. I probably only average like 1 day a year at this point. I have a dream retirement plan. I want to have a cat sanctuary by the sea. I primarily want to focus on older cats who have special medical needs or with owners who've passed away. Older cats are often less likely adopted. I already TNR and help care for a stray colony, so it isn't very far off of my current life. I have a friend who grew up on a small dairy farm. Every birthing season, his parents would send the male calves away. I came up with an expansion of my dream. I'd run a cat and bull sanctuary. I figured I could sell manure and bull sperm and help pay for the costs, and I could save all those male calves. I finally asked why they kept getting rid of the males. Turns out bulls don't really provide much a dairy farm needs, if you know what I mean. Not just that, but you don't get a bunch of bulls together and have a nice and chill tea time. You don't keep bulls together. You get one. And that's what happened to my dream of the no bullet cat and bull sanctuary. If money weren't an object, I could have enough land and facilities for all bull and kitties. Alien hunter and ghost disprover. Having a studio to paint, craft, draw, sculpt, knit, sew, write and build, I'd be the happiest. Writing. I love writing, and I might get out in the world and experience fun stuff along the way, cause that gives you more to write about. Growing cannabis and creating new strains, one day soon. Travel, weed, women, cars. I would go through hiking. I would still try to do it as cheaply as humanly possible. I would start with the Bruce Trail, then the AT, and then the PCT before moving on to others. Travel the world to cool sporting events. Instead of spending $30,000 in my garage on my $1,500 car making it a full-on race car, I'd buy a gigantic shop building and then spend $30,000 on my $1,500 car making it a full-on race car. Currently in Cabo on a trip that I got my scuba cert for. Definitely traveling and diving in different places around the world. Building keyboards. I'm into it now, but I would be able to afford the higher end keyboards. I'd love to own some horses and have a little ranch. That would be all I need. Decking out a van into a camper van so I can travel the USA, or learning about cars and mechanical work, or becoming a tattoo artist. Traveling the world and golfing. I want to sail. I loved those small single mast boats as a kid, and I would love to try some bigger ones. Do some adventurous week or month long sailing trips. Cosplay. I would love to be able to make my own cosplay and actually go to conventions. That'd be awesome. Designing and building houses for low income people. Woodworking. Not that I know anything about it, but I've always wanted to make my own coffee table. I even have an image of what it'd look like in my head. It's just too expensive for me to take even a basic woodworking class around where I live. Making clothes. I have a natural hourglass figure with big hips and I can't find any clothes that fit me right, so it would be nice to have form-fitting clothes. Horseback riding. Specifically dressage. I showed horses as a child and I miss it so much. Still sleeping, but more of it. Doing 2 chicks at the same time. Collecting time and money. The same thing it currently is. Driving fun cars and riding fast motorcycles. If I was filthy rich, they'd be Italian instead of Japanese. A combination hobby. I would love to learn to create new games for older platforms and remaster old games for those same platforms. I would love to be releasing new PlayStation 1 and Game Boy Advance games. I have always loved those 2 consoles specifically and feel they can still have amazing games added to their library. Part of this would stem from my annoyance with modern games focusing too much on graphics instead of gameplay. The simple processors of the older systems really made you have to master programming to have a good, efficient, and fun game. Building and learning how to drive rally cars. I'm a simple man. Playing basketball with some good competition. A baseball is all I need for good mood. I'd hire an actor to play me for the rest of my life and kill myself. My husband and I would definitely open a store that is part board games and part independent bookstore, host game nights, local authors, musicians, and sell stuff we are deeply passionate about. I would love to be a designer. Make an O'Neill cylinder. buying massive chunks of land and turning them into parks, biological reservoirs, perfecting artificial gestation for humans, building an entire city, maybe one that floats, pumping money into bodybuilding to make sure there are even more men for me to ogle. There's nothing wrong with treating yourself. Suing people for violations of laws made to protect the common man, but whose enforcement mechanisms have been stripped underfunded. Glass blowing and smithing. Either restoring old cars or making games. I already play the guitar and the mandolin, but if I had enough money, I'd buy me almost any instrument and take lessons as well. Geez, no money and time issue? I'd literally try to do it all. Study, travel, garden, workshop, cook, learn every musical instrument, crafts, limitless possibilities. Scuba diving. I tried it once and it blew my mind. Unfortunately, it's very expensive. Saltwater aquariums. Even a 600+ gallon saltwater pond. Have been considering a 150-300 gallon indoor pond, stock tank, for goldfish, but I'd imagine a saltwater setup would be considerably more expensive with salt mixes, RO water, live rock etc. Not sure how I'd even afford the water changes for a 600 gallon saltwater unless most people with those size setups try to reuse the water with a refugium or something. Large size stone carving with pneumatic tools, blacksmithing, tuning cars and motorcycles, then riding them across the globe. I'm a very simple man. Would love to write more complex damned campaigns that I can DM and share. It's mostly a time issue though. Astronomer here. I would totally start a hobby of launching space missions to take pretty pictures of other planets. Like those guys who post astrophotography pictures, but check out this cool angle of Saturn's rings or whatever. I mean, if money really weren't an issue, that would be super fun. Snowboarding all over the world. Writing and recording songs. I've recorded over 100 at home and about a dozen in a proper studio. But with a proper amount of time and the right equipment, I could be making an album every week. Fixed wing and helicopter flying. Soon. Dungeon and Dragons module designer and writer. Flower arranging. I have a knack for it and find it so therapeutic. I love books. I can't stop reading them. It's even to the point where I forgot playing games with friends because it's not as fun as books. If I had the time and money, I'd want to read non-stop. I practically already do, but I still want more. Ice skating. I've always wanted to do a course to learn how to skate backwards, spin, basic jump etc, but it's always during normal 9-5 hours. That plus the fact I live in the UK makes it highly impractical as there is no mass appeal for ice rinks. I will never be the next Jean Torville IO. Woodworking. I'd love to be able to build whatever I want, whenever I want. Just got into 3D printing this year, so if time, money, and space were not an issue, I'd build my own makerspace and print stuff and learn 3D modeling. Owning and caring for fish tanks, freshwater, saltwater, the works. They're beautiful, time consuming, and expensive, but god, the payoff is amazing. Terraforming. It'd be cool to just terraform planets for a few millennia. I'd be the only person ever to see a planet terraformed all the way through. I'd live out of a van. It's always been a lifelong dream of mine. No idea why, never been able to shake it out of my head.